Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the show. Let's see here. Get my stuff going. Sorry I was running a little late today. I was looking at some graphics for our files for our show. I used to have a bunch of graphics and images set up for all these classes that I'm talking about here, and I did all the classes with sets of images, and I can't seem to find them anywhere now, which is less optimal than I had hoped. But I did manage to find some Chain of Manifestation pictures at least, so I will be able to show those today. Right. So let's see what's going on. All right. Okay, so do I have anything to talk about with the site updates or anything? No, not really. But here, I'll go ahead and share my screen anyway. So, yes. All right, this is my... Oh, sorry, I was trying to figure out how Square worked. All right, so this is my main page. Today we're going to be talking about the Principles of Planetary Magic. Somebody said the other day that my magnum opus was 7 Spheres. I really like the book 7 Spheres. I think it's pretty cool. It's I think it's a great set of rituals that are designed to sort of establish you as the king of your kingdom and help you understand how the different forces of the planetary spheres can be tapped into to help establish you that way, and kind of give you all the resources you need to get by in life. And the Principles of Planetary Magic course, which is over... oh, by the way, to get to my courses, you just go to rufusopus.com, go to courses. All the stuff that's free is under the basic curriculum, no fee. You can go to Overview or Conjuration, whatever. There's the full set, the Conjuration class itself, the tutelary spirits classes by themselves, and the Principles of Planetary Magic. And once again, if you're just like hopping in on this kind of thing, I'm going over all the courses that I offer on my site. I made them all free back in, well, around February or so, when after Trump was elected and started like making some massive changes. I got really upset because I didn't like where things were going at first. These days, I still don't like where they're going. I wish that they would go back further left, but I have more confidence in the judges than I did, and I have more confidence that all this is temporary than I did. Yeah, so, and I have a strategy to deal with it, so when I get stressed out, I just remember that until I have enough money, I cannot move, so I need to save a lot of money to move. So that's my mantra, is make money, get money. If you consider politicians the colloquial term of hey Diana, how's it going? If you consider politicians to be like bitches, like in the colloquial term bitches. If you consider politicians to be bitches, then you can say that the mantra has become fuck bitches, get money, right? Because it's just, that's, if the politicians are the bitches, then fuck them. I don't have time for all that shit, basically. Anyway, so this is the Planetary Magic course. It's 8 lessons. Right. So, I'm sorry, I was going over why I did all this. All right. So the miles ago, many moons ago, the 7 Spheres book was like my introduction to occult publishing or whatever. And then, I got more and more into the great work, and I did the great work. I keep doing the great work. I'm working on finishing on, not finishing it, but you know what I mean, like accomplishing the creation of the Philosopher's Stone and changing the world and all that. So, yeah. So as I went through the whole 16th century take on what the great work is all about, planetary magic is part and parcel of all that stuff. And I put together a package of classes that are designed to basically equip you to perform the great work and to equip you to be able to be a fully functioning magician, and I'll talk about what I mean by that here today in our class, or in our whatever show. But yeah, and it's basically, there's like three parts to it in my opinion. There's there's more to it. But basically, to do the great work, and it's not just about the great work. It's about building a decent life and having the income that you need and the partner that you want and the food, shelter, clothing that Maslow's pyramid gives you, and a good job and good people to work with. And yes, politicians are bitches. I agree, Jenny. And it's like, they've got all this crap going on. They've got all this stuff that they want us to think about and worry about and stress out about. And then like 3 days later, it gets resolved in a court, or it's not as bad as you thought, or it's been exaggerated to make you scared so we should sell more articles. And that's what it boils down to. And it's not, if you just wait 3 days, most of the high octane big things like resolve, like Trump says something stupid, 3 days later the courts are like, nah, and it's like, you just got to put up with the I'm going to say something stupid and wait for the nah. There are breaks on all this stuff, and it's like, someone's making money off of all the people that are going screaming their heads off in between the Trump says something and the courts say nah. There's a lot of people making a lot of money, especially on the pump and dump stuff on the stock market, right? But I'm just tired of playing it, the game. I'm tired of playing their game. I'm tired of playing their stupid whatever. At the end of the day, no matter what happens, if Donald Trump were to get abducted by aliens tomorrow, someone else would take their place. If Kamala Harris had won, even, I would have a much better emotional take on life. But even when Biden was president, I was trying to get money and get out. I don't like society. It doesn't matter who's in charge of it. I don't like it. I don't like the way it works. I don't like the way it sucks my fucking time away, so that I can make money to play with it. Like, it makes me play with it, and it makes me work to play with it, and I have to do it, or I go to jail. Basically, there's nowhere you can go and just be free. You can't just be free on Earth. Being born isn't enough to walk on the planet that you were born on, because of societies and nationalities and tribes and cultures, right? And bullshit upon bullshit upon bullshit. It's not Trump. Trump is a symptom of people telling you what to do, and that's bullshit, man. I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, in my opinion, this is all just my internal world. I'm not saying this is how it should be for everybody. I don't think the planet would be better if everybody had what I want. Not with 7 billion people. It won't work. What's ideal, in my opinion, is impossible without a whole lot of people moving into other ways of being. It's just not gonna happen. But I feel like people were born on the earth. We should be free to do whatever we want with whatever we can get our hands on, and the help of whoever we can convince to help us with it. That's what I feel like we should be able to do. And that's basically what we're able to do. It's just, there's all these rules to every step of that. If you come up with an idea, then you have to get the resources. And to get the resources, you have to pay the people that already say they own it, even though they just got born same as the rest of us, but they own it now, right? Whatever. They follow the rules that makes the police protect their property. Fine. So I have to pay them for the resources. I get the resources and I can do what I want with it. But, if I want help, I have to convince other people to do it. And most people have also got to work for a living. So they can only give me part of their time if they're going to support my efforts, unless I buy their time so that they can participate in society. It's so many layers of bullshit just to have a good time. It's dumb, and we're dumb for letting it happen as a species, to ourselves and to everybody else. We're dumb people who create tribes who do dumb things to each other. And I'm pretty sure today, and this is just, look, I'm being a little bitter and cynical. I don't mean all this stuff really, but this is how I feel at the moment, At the moment, I feel like this is the hell of stupid people who think that's not them, right? If you look around, everybody thinks everybody else is stupid, but not me. I'm smart. I get it, right? That's like my shtick, right? I'm an occultist. I know the secrets. Everybody thinks that they're better than everybody else, and that we have a better understanding of all this crap, and everybody's contributing to the same bottom line, and I hate it. I hate it. I'm gonna rant. Anyway, the thing is, it's a stupid world out there. Whoever's running it, it doesn't matter. My bottom line is always going to be fuck bitches and get money, right? Because I want to get out until I have a place where I'm alone. They have to leave me alone, and except for when I want to go out and play with them, you know. And I think honestly, that's been my therapist says it's what I've been trying to do since I was 18. I'm trying to leave home and the authoritarian constructs of my Christian upbringing, you know, and that I've just been doing that ever since, you know. And it's like, maybe I don't care. I still think I'm right, and I think it's the right thing to do. Where does magic fit into all that, right? So magic, right? What my one of my many mottos is, you know, life is hard, but magic helps, right? Magic helps us get to a point where we can minimize our distractions and hopefully generate enough income to where we can buy our freedom, right? Because we're wage slaves. If we can buy our freedom, then we can return to our free life. You know, we can have the liberal ideal, which is liberal, free. You know, that's the idea, is everybody's free to do what they want, and the government is there to make sure that everybody can, you know, without hurting each other, right? Anyway, in theory. Sorry, my dog is looking at me like I need to do something. I will give her a bone. Okay, so, yeah. Anyway, hey Daryl, how's it going? Anyway, magic is supposed to help us get out, right? And if you do magic, it does help, right? You get opportunities. It works with the system at large. It helps you advance with things. It's pretty cool. Hang on just a second. I actually have to... I apologize. I have a minor thing here to take care of. Okay. Okay. All right. So magic is what is how it's a way to understand how things come into being, and a way to influence the things that come into being in our favor. It doesn't necessarily always make everything easy and perfect. It doesn't take the place of doing work. It doesn't. You can't. I don't know anybody who's done magic to get $1 million who has $1 million and no worries. Okay, I do know people who've done magic to get $1 million and they got their $1 million and they either frittered it away or they saved it up and are working on it today or using it today to work on other things. But it didn't make their life worry-free. You know what I mean? And the things that magic does help you work with is a lot more than just money, right? It helps you. It's so much. Okay. It's the key to the universe, right? Magic is the occult practices, the hidden secret techniques and technologies that we use to influence the forces that create reality according to our desires, so to get them in alignment with our will, to help them, to influence them, to help us. You know, it's based on sacrifices made to gods. It's based on relationships between the special priests or shamans and the invisible world of spirits. People are supposed to be able to tap into it through normal things like runes, right? Letters that you use that represent ideas. Everybody is supposed to have access to these invisible powers, but magic is the technology of using these invisible powers to accomplish your will, right? To do things miraculously with ways that you can't do on your own. You know, like you can do magic to build a bridge and like if you can't build a bridge, you do magic to build a bridge across a river, or to get a bridge built across a river, and then some other people come along and they get the idea to build the bridge, and you've got your bridge, but you didn't have to build it because maybe you had broken legs or something. I don't know. That's the theory, right? Or like you have the way it seems to work for me is if I have a project I want, I do, and I try to do, if I try to do magic to get the money for the project, I don't get the money for the project. If I do magic to get the project, I get the project, you know, because if I focus on money for some reason, that's all I do is I focus on money. I get all these opportunities to focus on making money, you know, and there's no money. It's just making money. Great. It's not the same thing. Because when you're just making money, you're not building anything, right? All you're doing is making money. Like I can make money all day long, but it doesn't. I don't know if that makes sense. Because all right, so it's real easy to spend a lot of time making very little. Is what I'm trying to say here. Like I can make almost enough to live on in my sleep. It's great, you know. But if I actually want to have enough to thrive or to be able to do my projects, you know, I always am going to need more money. So anyway, I don't know if this all makes sense, but I'm gonna focus on the magic. So magic itself, right, is supposed to help you do all these things, right, and it helps you get everything towards the goal here. You know, I'm going to turn off my that. Okay, so anyway, the other screen was supposed to be just to show you how to get to it, but we're doing the you know what, crap. All right, so here's the Principles of Planetary Magic. This is what we're doing today. I have been off on a tangent all day. Anyway, Principles of Planetary Magic, Introduction and Overview. This is the main thing I wanted to talk about today. But there's so much to all this stuff, and I keep losing my place in the whole stream of consciousness, as it were. Yeah. So, all right. So, magic is the technology of trying to, you know, get these invisible powers to work with us to do what we want. The 7 spheres in planetary magic. All right. So there's a lot of different kinds of magic, right? There's conjure magic, right? And that's where you conjure a spirit. There's astrological magic, like where you make a talisman at a certain time and out of certain materials, and you put it out, and it's the position of the stars and the symbols on the little metal thing or whatever it's made out of, you know, that you've created. And it's just because you've created it in that moment with the intent to accomplish your desire, with the images that it says, that it has magical power, right? And it's just, ta-da, you know, it's going to do whatever it's supposed to do because you made it in the right time. You don't have to conjure anybody. You don't have to draw any circles on the ground or burn incense, or, I mean, there's some talismans you have to actually suffumigate, you know, there's suffumigation. I mean, there's a lot of ritual around even the astrological talismans. But it's not technically conjure magic. Conjure magic involves calling with your voice a spirit to you by its name and its seal, or its name at least, or its seal at least, or by describing it. You know, you're calling a conscious entity that manifests as separate from your own thoughts to address and interact with to accomplish your will, your magical intent, right? So that's what magic is, right? And there's different flavors. Planetary magic is a type of magic that is based on the idea that the planets represent the forces of creation, right? And that Saturn represents Saturnine forces, and Jupiter represents Jupiterian forces, right? And the names of the planets are based on the names of the gods, and then the powers of the planets represent the powers of the gods, right? So Jupiter is jovial, it's magnanimous, it's generous, it's benevolent. It's about wealth and power and political power and health, you know, robust health, you know, that's all Jupiterian stuff. And Jupiterian magic is going to be reflective of that, right? So if you want the stuff of Jupiter, you do Jupiterian magic, right? Makes sense. So each of the planets represents an aspect of the qualities of the different experiences we have in life. All right, so if you think about yourself, you're a human being, you have a body, you have a mind, you have some part of you that is spiritual. You are studying spiritual things, so you think there's something spiritual about you, if nothing else. When you're sleeping, you're having experiences that are hard to explain. You know, they're with just physical. Anyway, whatever. There's evidence that you have a spirit. You have emotions. You're not always feeling the same way. So you have anger sometimes, and you have love other times, right? So you know that there's different qualities to yourself in different layers. You've got a body, mind, spirit, heart, right? At least 4 different aspects of yourself. And if you approach your life, you can approach it focused on it very intellectually today, you know, and then you can read the newspaper with your intellectual mind and see something that triggers some emotions, and you're very angry, and you're going to angrily address today, you know, through your anger, you're going to see all this stuff as anger, and then you're going to be like, oh wait, I'm kind of hungry, you know, so you'll be like, I'm gonna eat some food, and you eat some food, and you're like, oh, I was just hungry, you know, and you're addressing the world through your body, right? So your experience of your life is going to be, it's all those different things, you know. It's not just your mind, it's not just your body, it's not just your heart, you know. You can focus on one area of it, and you can interpret everything that's going on through that perspective, that lens of that quality of your life. But it's not, the specific parts aren't everything, right? So in the same way, when people were coming up with these planetary magical things, they said that the sphere of Saturn represents these aspects, and Jupiter represents these aspects, but everything isn't just Jupiterian. Everything isn't, there's not like, I'm not just Jupiterian, I'm Jupiterian and Saturnine and all these other things at the same time. So in the same way that we know that we have different moods and different aspects of ourselves that we can address the world through, they applied that to the invisible forces that create our daily experiences, you know, daily, monthly, yearly. As human beings evolved, we developed these systems of working with the invisible world through spiritual technologies, right? We called on as shamans, we would identify with the spirits of the animals and try to improve our hunts. You know, we'd identify with the plant animals to try to find medicines that would heal our loved ones, you know. In Greece, they called it pharmacopoeia, the identification of medicinal herbs. We have pharmaceuticals from the word pharmacopoeia, and it was also the word for sorcerer and sorceress. It was the person who knew the herbs, the lore of the herbs, was someone who was a magician, a shaman, right? Because they were able to do the medicine and figure out, you know, it's a name that goes back to how we used to have to interpret things from the invisible world to figure out how to deal with our physical world, right? And what the interaction is. And the spiritual leaders, the people who became our priests, you know, the people who became our religious leaders, you know, they used to be in our general tribes, they were the ones that went out and communed with the invisible and found the methods to heal and to influence things in our favor as a tribe from these spirits, and brought it back to the tribe to share it with us. Okay. I don't want to talk about how effective they were. That's the theory. Okay, so that's the foundation of everybody's magic, in my opinion, as a human being. We're all doing something with our magical techniques that make us think that we are influencing these invisible forces to accomplish what we want, to get their help, to either make it happen for us or guide us to it or whatever, you know. They broke down these different influences. They grouped them together by qualities and traits, and they said they categorized everything that we experience, and they said that this feeling is heavy and cold, you know, so that's Saturnine. Okay, Saturn is heavy and cold. Lead is heavy and cold. It's Saturnine. Saturn means heavy and cold and time and death. Okay, so we'll go with that. So everything that's related to that, we'll just kind of put in there. And over time, we got these tables of correspondences, right? And we ended up with 7 different planets. And in planetary magic, it's all just about the 7 planets and the gods that they represent and the forces and all that stuff. Astrological magic has all the stars, right, and all the constellations and the positions and the timing and the relationship of those stars to where a person is at on the earth at the time that they're evaluating things. So there's a physical element, a timing element, and then the known fixed or moving planets and how they interact with things all together. And there's a whole system of what to do with astrology to accomplish things, to tap into the invisible world and the forces that are creating our existence to get what we want, either aligning ourselves to it or getting a talisman to get that energy that it represents into our lives or whatever, right? Conjuration is another method of doing that. It's another type of magic, but it's a method of working with the intelligences themselves directly to create the desired outcomes with your voice. All right. There's also like temple magic, right? Where you worship God, like Christians, they worship God. They have a praise and offering, right? Is what it's based on. But like you tell God how awesome He is, and you work yourself up into an ecstatic frenzy, and you have a vision of God during the praise and worship service. You put your money in, you sacrifice, you tithe, you whatever you call it. You support the fat ass priests. Right, and so you pay your money, you have your ecstatic experience, you ask for what you want, and sort of hope that frames the energy, and God hears it. And it's like, oh, your sacrifice was so great, I'm totally going to help you, and then you get the blessings, right? And that's a ritual that we do with prayer and temples, and whether it's Christian God, I'm using Christianity because people are familiar with it, but it's not the only way to do things. If it's according to the Old Testament, you would go to the temple, you'd make your sacrifices, and if it was good enough, God would bless you, right? Same thing. They had a list of things they had to give. Ancient Egypt, I know that the priests used to monitor the grain, and the grain was their take, right? And they doled out the grain to everybody the way the gods told them to, or whatever. But again, it was, you'd make your offerings, you'd make your sacrifices, you'd get your results. And a lot of the Egyptian magic, like the Greek magical papyri, are sort of like the magician's guide to the gods that the priests already, if you go to seminary, you get to learn all the rules of the Book of the Dead, and you get to learn all the secrets of the god that you're worshiping or you're serving, and what the secret offerings are and what the things are to get the god to be favorable for the people who are paying the temple, right? Magicians didn't go to the school. They didn't get their certification. They had to figure it out on their own, right? So the Greek magical papyri are full of all these secrets of the gods, or what people said were the secrets of the gods that were necessary to get the magic to work, right? And whether or not it was really real or not doesn't seem to matter. That's one of the big key secrets to this whole occult thing, is the systems that all these different people in China, in India, and in Europe, and in North America and South America, all the systems that human beings came up with to interact with the invisible world have a lot in common, as if our DNA, genetically, the things that we have in common genetically, has set us up to be able to have these experiences that we all seem to have with different words for it, and that doesn't mean you can just make up any system and put words in it and symbols and have it work. Okay, each of these systems that have developed organically in the wild, they come from actual experiences, right? And cultural ideas, and the people that you're working with to save in the middle of the ice age to get that mammoth to fall off the cliff, and so you can slice it up and eat, that shaman doing that magic, he had pressures on him, right? There was but he learned how to do his magic in the tribe, within the culture of the tribe. They were telling him what to draw on the walls at what time of the year to do it. They were telling him what they had to do to get the initiatory experiences to tap into the mammoth spirit to get it to run over, or however they did it. I'm totally guesstimating. I don't know what they did or how they did it. It's based on stuff I read as a kid, the tribe, the lore, the myths, the beliefs that we have about how the invisible world works, they develop in all of these systems over millennia. It's not like Josh came up with, figured out that if you believe in something, then a spirit's going to show up, so I'm going to conjure Superman. That's not how it works. And I know so many chaos magicians who insist that that's how it works. It's not how it works. Okay? That's just confirmation bias, guys. When you really believe something in your core, your essence, your essential self, it's fed by everything you've been brought up to believe. It's in your cells. It's in your mother's voice is telling you how the gods operate, all your life. And guys, if you're not like over 50 yet, yeah, it's all your life. Your mother's voice is in your head. Your dad's voice is with you. The people who raised you, they stay in your mind. And there's not anything we can do about it. We can lessen their impact. We can heal if they've done harm. We can work on things and make things better, sure. But they're always going to be there. They're always going to be influencing us. So when you look at the systems that came out of these cultures and millennia and all the stuff of people being influenced by all these other people, there's a power to it that and a nuance that reflects the person doing the magic. Yeah, I'm sorry, I thought I had some water here. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so the mythology that you tap into as a magician is going to be based on is going to be supported by your daily experiences when your roles are consistent with your tribal culture, is what I'm trying to say. It seems like what you get from the spirits is what you expect. And that's a gross oversimplification. People who go to Enochian magic expecting one type of experience often have exactly the type of experience that they expected. Different people at the same conjuration who are doing the scrying and observing what they sense or feel or visions that they get or whatever they imagine during that time, whatever they felt led to be imagining, however you want to look at it. They express similar core concepts in the imagery that they expected or that they were most comfortable seeing. And what that means is, like, someone who was raised in the desert Southwest might have a vision. They conjure a spirit, and the spirit shows them a vision of 7 fires, right? 7 flames dancing around a giant bonfire, and each person is standing in the center between the big bonfire and the 7 smaller fires. Each of the individual participants is receiving the heat and directing it over the smaller fire out into the universe at large that's receiving this current of heat, right? And that's what one person sees and explains. Another person sees a giant crystal in the center and 7 people surrounding it with 7 smaller crystals in front of them, and they're beaming crystalline light or sound or energy or vibrations through the 7 individuals. And it's going to be different based on what the person's personality type is, their expectations, their training. If someone's raised to believe that all the good spirits of the sky are angels, they're going to see a ton of angels, and they're going to be really successful with angel magic. But if you are raised in and of the earth, and you're familiar with the soil and the worms and the role of feces and fecal breakdown in nutrient and natural life and the generational aspects of existence, if you understand that correlation between life and death, and that it is sustenance, and they are different, but they are exactly the same. And if you understand that, you're going to have more powerful connections to the underworld gods. If you can grasp that, if that resonates with your core understanding of existence, you're going to have a magical system that resonates with the underground aspects of things, because you're into the dirt. You're into the dirt. If you're into dirt, you're going to do better with dirt magic. It makes sense, right? This is not rocket science. I'm not some genius that figured all this shit out. This this is just how it is. You know, you can just kind of look around and see it. You know, it isn't. Anyway, so you can't just make stuff up, right? It doesn't. This, I mean, you can, and it does kind of work, honestly, but it's not as effective as when you've got your whole core personality, every part of your body, mind, and soul, and everything that you've learned your whole life pushing into it. If you look at Obermelin, it talks about how you're not supposed to leave the religion of your birth, you know, and I think that's bullshit. I was raised a Christian, you know. Everything I believed about existence and spirituality and Christianity as roughly, I want to say like 20-year-old, let me, how do I put this in a way that makes sense? As a Christian, I had very solid and powerful, life-changing experiences of God through the Christian imagery. Following the formulas of the Christian church, I had the experiences that they said you're supposed to have. I spoke in tongues. I was baptized in the Spirit. I changed my ways. You know, I had a regenerated heart. I had a vision of God on the throne. I had a vision of being broken. I'm broken, O Lord, heal me, you know. I had all the Christian stuff, the milestones that you're supposed to have. It didn't make me good. It didn't help. It didn't help anything. And it was just a way to feel better about myself, you know? And it's not... And the corruption of the system of Christianity got to me after a while, you know, just the utter ingrained hypocrisy and the people pretending like it wasn't that, you know, like if you're going to acknowledge the fact that, you know, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. People can't acknowledge that they aren't living up to their own expectations of others. And it sucks. I do the same thing, but I acknowledge it. I feel like I'm better than everybody else because they don't acknowledge it, and I do. So, whatever. I'm as silly as the rest. So anyway, all that to say, these systems that we've developed over time are, they are. I don't know. The different systems are different approaches to doing the same thing, and they're going to reflect your even within the trainings and prescriptions and proscriptions of any given system. Like if you enter into the Golden Dawn and you go through the Golden Dawn initiations, your personal individual experiences of each of those initiations is going to be in your own language, in your own visions, in your own symbols that are meaningful to you. Mostly, sometimes when you do these systems things, you get the actual images of the system even if you don't understand it, right? So the egregore or whatever, the cultural impact of the system is so strong, it impresses you, right? So this is why, like the magic that you do on your own, and this is so much bullshit. I can't even say this. It's true, but it's not always true. But yeah, so like. Say there's a little 8-year-old girl who believes that the fireflies are bringing her wishes into being, and she tells a firefly something, and then it goes off and does a thing, or it just flies away, and next thing you know, what she asked for happens, right? She just made up some magic, right? The magic of the fireflies, right? She just made up a magical practice, and then when she goes back to the fireflies again, is it going to work, or was it just a coincidence? You know, and that's the thing is, the universe plays along with your little games. It will fulfill your desires, your little requests along the way, but not always. Not about the big things, not about the things that matter the most, it seems like sometimes. But that's not true, actually. The only reason they seem like they matter the most is because you didn't get what you wanted. What if? What if you didn't want it as bad? Maybe then it wouldn't matter so much. So anyway, so the little girl that calls the firefly spirits to manifest things. So say she says to this firefly spirit, go over and tell somebody who lives across town to call me because I want them to call me, right? So she tells the firefly spirit that. Does the firefly spirit go and do that? I don't know. Is it going to work? Like, I want to say no, it's not going to work because it's just her magic. It only works for her. But the thing is someone's going to call her. It's going to work. Sometimes it's going to work. She's going to ask this firefly spirit to go and have someone call her, and someone's going to call her, right? So is it because we're all interconnected? I think it's because we're all interconnected. If we're all one thing, it doesn't matter what we do because everything is listening, and maybe we're going to get it. So sometimes the little girl who creates firefly magic is going to have a firefly work and be able to communicate with people who don't believe in her magic. So her magic, her belief, whether other people believe it or not, is still effective. Is that fair? I mean, it's not fair sometimes, I want to say. I mean, I don't win the lottery. But it's like honestly, it's like the little firefly magics in the world are always going to be more effective. It seems like they always are. You know, because it's something that you want in the moment and you speak it into being, and it's just frivolous and it's a whim, but you're 100% focused on it for a second. But then you go to these full rituals to do everything that you want. You have all these expectations and all these fears and all these things that could go wrong, and then all of a sudden you don't get what you want. You're like, oh. So I want to say your expectations determine your results. But if I say that, people are going to take it the wrong way, and they're going to take it down silly paths. And I did it myself, is why I'm saying it. I used to believe that, and it didn't work. You know, it doesn't work, so screw chaos magic, I said for years. You know, but sometimes it does. You know, and is it confirmation bias? Sure, that's one mythological lore that we have from our psychological society, is that it's just in your head. You have the power to hypnotize yourself to observe things you would have missed otherwise. Maybe that's what's happening. Or maybe the spirits are revealing things to you that you would have missed otherwise. You know? I don't know how it all works. I got a lot of theories, but I think in the end, having a system helps. I mean, bottom line is, if you have a framework, you know, all these different shamans and priests and everything, whether it's China, India, or wherever it's from, the different systems provide a lattice, a grid, you know, a set of columns and rows and times and actions that you perform with the spirits of your tribe, or according to the methods of your tribe, to make the invisibles help you out. You know, whether it's a prayer to Jesus, Jesus take the wheel, you know. How many people know that one from the memes? That's society reinforcing bullshit, religious stuff, right? It's not, Jesus isn't going to take the wheel, but people are like getting in wrecks saying that like it's going to help, because they're programmed to call on the invisibles using these symbols and these words and these formulas. Occultists have very specific individual formulas and tables of correspondences that tell us how to ritually tap into these spirits and get their help. Okay? I feel like the more work we put into learning it, and the harder it is, the more challenges and ordeals that we put ourselves through, the more effective the magic ends up being, because we expect it to work because we did so much. The downside of that is that it doesn't always work. And then you've done all the steps, and you've believed all the belief, and everything that you were supposed to do was supposed to work, and it didn't work. So why didn't it work? You know, and then at that point, it's really easy to blame the victim, okay? And that's what I tend to do. Like, I always think that if someone's magic didn't work, the magic worked fine. It was the person that fucked it up, you know? Blame the victim. It's bullshit too. These days, what I do is, if it doesn't work, I try again. If I don't get what I want, I ask again, because I've learned that asking again often gets you what you want, because you either missed the chance the first time, or just somebody was supposed to do something that they didn't do. So, like, I was thinking about it this morning. I'm no man is an island, right? I'm not an island, and I don't exist in a vacuum. I'm not an island in a vacuum. I'm not. I have other people that I rely on to do things, and they fuck up. They're just like me, right? They're just like me. I can't remember where I put my can't remember what it's called. My measuring tape when I'm measuring stuff out in the garage. I can't remember. It's ADD, it's the pot, it's the distraction, it's the 100 million things. It's something. There's something. Okay? And it makes me forget where I put it. People have appointments that they forget about and then they miss it. People forget that one thing or another, or they lose things, or they break things. And that's something else that bothers me, is why do things have to break? There's a limited time on everything. Everything under the moon dies and passes away. If you've ever seen the light of the moon, you too are going to die. It's a curse. No, it's just part of life. It's part of the existence, Anyway, the grid, the framework that we get from our magical practices gives us an interface to project our desires into these invisible worlds. Every culture is different. The benefit of learning a whole system that's been developed by your culture is that you get the whole cultural force of your expectations since you were born aligned and in harmony with your outcome. The reason I think that's important is because in the Dervani manuscript, it literally says, we do not make offerings to the gods because the gods want offerings, but to restore or establish harmony. Harmony. We're just balancing the forces so that we manifest what we want. The core vibrational, whatever you want to call it, from the Kabbalion or Hermetics or the Silmarillion or whatever, physics, physics, right? The vibrational quality of existence. It's the rate at which we vibrate that makes things solid or not solid. We know that's true. The vibrations they follow the laws of vibrations and resonance and pattern. It's all particles making waves, and everything that has a wave can be extended or shrunk up. It's more frequent when it's all shrunk up, and it's slower when it's longer, right? And it sounds different. Right? Depending on the length of your sound wave and how many peaks and troughs there are, right? That's what makes sound. Right? And we know about how vibrations work. Sound is an example of that. And harmonies and resonances. And it happens at the atomic scale. It happens at the molecular scale. A lot of our chemistry is based on the resonance of these atoms that are vibrating at a certain rate because of the number of ions they have or whatever. Like whatever the atomic number of your particles is, that's like the number of I can't remember. Jesus Christ. Anyway, the difference of the numbers of items changes the vibration, which changes how they can merge together, right? And create form. Harmonics is very much a key way to describe what we're doing with magic. Okay, we're creating a vibe that the universe resonates with. It's a simple way of putting it. It oversimplifies a lot, but that's why we bring all this stuff together. From Hermes, we have an ebony wand, right? We've got that and the herbs that he likes, and we know that his city is Hermopolis, and we tell him all these things, and we call him with all the descriptions of his myths, the Orphic hymn to Mercury, to Hermes. We're calling on him by creating a space that vibrates with the things that represent him, and then we call him with our actual voices, and he hears us, and because we have the vibes right, he can show up. In Hermetics, or in Planetary Magic, at least, we break the day up into hours, right? There's 24 hours. We break the daylight hours up from the nighttime hours, and then each hour has a planet assigned to it. Okay, 24 hours, so 7 planets, so 7 times, I don't know, 7 times 4 is 28, right? So anyway, when you go through the hours, there's more or less hours than there are. It's not equal, but so every day, the first hour isn't going to be the same planet. It's going to be the next planet in order if you follow the Chaldean order. So like if you look at and the days of the week are named after these planets, and all this comes back to Chaldea. So all of our calendars, all of our hours, all of our days, the number of hours in a day, the number of degrees in a circle, the number of zodiac signs in the sky, all these things come back to are based on, I want to say, it's not really Arabic, but like the Persian Chaldean calendar systems, right? From back in Ur. All of our timing system is based on these Phoenicians figuring out math. I never figured out the math, if you can't tell. But anyway, because they had the same system that they worked with, it turns out, and they all believed in, and it's all based on zodiac, right, and planets and whatnot. So the 7-day week corresponds to the 7 planets that move around the sky that you can see with the naked eye, and those 7 planets are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Moon, Mars, Mercury. I forgot what day I was on. Jupiter, Venus, Saturn, and the sun, right? So those are the 7 days a week. Each one has a planet assigned to it. Each of the hours, if you go through each day, the first hour of the day is whatever the day is, right? So Monday, the first hour of Monday is the moon hour, and then you go through, after the moon comes Saturn, right? Yeah, Saturn, and then after Saturn comes Jupiter, and then Mars, and then the sun, and then Venus, and then Mercury, and then the moon again, right? And that's the cycle, and it just repeats like that over and over again. So and then the way it works out is after 24 hours, if you take the moon and go 24 times through that pattern, the 24th hour, and on the next day or the 25th hour, it's going to be the next planetary hour. So 25 planetary hours after the moon hour is going to be the Saturn hour or something like that. I don't know exactly if I'm saying it exactly right, but that's how it works out, so that every day starts on the same hour. This is all really like kind of complicated, and the way it all works out is really, it's probably like only 4 or 5 layers of math. I can't do it. I'm not a mathematician. I don't understand it all enough. It bothers me, but whatever. So some things I don't have to know. But this complicated system works. It works to tell time, and it works to give us predictive power. And it within planetary magic, one of the reasons I tapped into planetary magic is because it's so prevalent in our culture that it's the days of our week, right? So like when I got away from Christianity and literally escaped, I was lost, right? I didn't have a system to do the things that religion was supposed to do. I had become an occultist, but I didn't have that experience of deity yet. I just had these techniques, and without God, I was programmed to think I was going to hell. So anyway, I had to overcome a lot of crap before I could start getting back into my magic. So anyway, yes. Let's see, hangry indeed, very much. Let's see, caution on saying tired of, because you just might get tired. Yeah, we got to caution on what you say about anything. When you say things out loud, the spirits are all listening. All right, so anyway, back to planetary magic. Planetary magic, right? So if you look at magic as just us talking to these invisibles, and we have all these systems of our society that empower our actual practices, right? They fill in the gaps of our lore. They tell us what Saturn does. They tell us what Jupiter does. They tell us what Mars did. They tell us that Aphrodite had 5 babies with Aries, and that maybe that Mars and Venus work together. There's all kinds of indications in our mythologies from the Greeks and our tables of correspondences from the medieval times that tell us what all these planets represent. And that lore is generations of lore, and it's something that we share across our culture and across European and European descended cultures. And the surrounding areas, I want to say, I want to say that like maybe Russia, I don't know, maybe not so much. I think Russia still calls itself the East for reasons. But pretty much everywhere that Christianity has been, and everybody that uses a 24-hour day there's going to be enough resonance to be able to tap into planetary magic in a successful way, in my opinion. So, yeah, I'm all over the place today. But there's all right, so if we go back to and circle everything up again, different systems of magic, right? Astrological, planetary, conjure, herbal magic, right? All these different things, and all these different systems have overlap. Planetary magic uses conjure. Astrological magic uses planets. Conjure magic, you're conjuring the spirits of the planets at the astrological times. Again, these are just different layers to a magician, that a magician takes all these different things into account, some of them more so than others, but it's just like having a body and being body focused at your day, or having a mental issue and being mentally focused at your day, or having emotions and you're being emotional with your day. It's like these different aspects of yourself. They're like the different types of magic that people like to focus on, but there's a lot of overlap. Magic consists of all these different things: timing, ingredients, special words, special symbols, and special tools, right? I think that's pretty much symbols, tools, words, timing, and location, right? So like it needs to be like for some rituals you have to be at the stream, other rituals you have to be at the beach, that kind of thing. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So that's what magic is, and how I see magic. And then planetary magic then is a condensation of all these other things. God damn it. You see, this is why I don't like to talk about this, because honestly, the reason, if you look at my Principles of Planetary Magic class, it is, let's see, the video itself is 2 hours and 5 minutes long. I'm not going to spend 2 hours and 5 minutes on it today. But the, sorry, I haven't looked at it in a while, and I forgot I'd used that background. Yeah. So crap. I'm gonna refocus here a little bit, I think. All right. So. All right. So this is what happens when I don't have an outline, by the way. To understand sort of like my condensation of planetary magic that I present in my class, let's dial it in and focus. All right, so all the world has magicians. Each culture has a set of specific rules and techniques and whatnot. Europeans share European and European adjacent and European descended and European conquered and European whatever. If your culture bears the imprint of European descended influences, part of what you're going to have at your disposal is the Greek myths, because Greece is a major part of what our European cultural impact, Western civilization, if you will, has had to base itself on, right? Because the Greeks established a really cool empire, and then they got conquered, but the conquerors thought they were so cool, they took their stuff and adopted it, and that's why we still hear about Zeus today, is because people thought it was cool, and it has a lot of explanatory force, right? So the Greek mythology that I tap into for this stuff is where we get the names of, or actually it's Rome. So Rome is a big deal. Rome conquered Greece and took everything and established the Roman Empire. Everything in Europe was under Rome, and most of parts of Asia and whatnot. So the whole known world, at least all the world that was known to the Romans, was Roman. They won. They conquered everybody, supposedly. So everybody they knew about, they felt like they had beaten the crap out of if it wasn't too hard to get to them. So so Rome established a general culture and a way to educate everybody about the Greeks and the Greek myths, and they named the planets. They renamed the planets Mars and Jupiter and all the things that we name them now. Our modern names for them come from Rome, but they kept the planetary influence that came to Greece through Persia, right? So back to Persia, and the astrologers that used to wander the desert and saw all the different stuff that was going on, they figured out what the qualities of the planets were. They observed the patterns of the planets, and they saw the influences of the planets, and as they observed it over thousands of years, they developed the technologies and the techniques and the tables of correspondences and the names of the spirits and all this stuff. And then it got kind of lost for a while. It got reintroduced to the West through the Byzantine, I don't know, through different ways. It got lost, it got found again. We're still learning math from the Arabs that we should have had if we were all sharing nicely thousands of years ago. But it's how we ended up with planetary magic, right? It went through from Greece to Rome, and then all through Christianity up through Europe, and along the way it gathered all this stuff, and we ended up with this whole, like, when you get to the 16th century, you have a very complicated, condensed set of astrological magic and spiritual spirits with lists of seals and symbols and words and rituals that came from all the different religions that were popular in the day, and the interpretations through those religious lenses of ancient techniques and technologies that were coming in through the fall of Constantinople, which had poured all this Byzantine educational information back into Europe after it had been gone since the 1300s or whatever. I don't remember all the details of history, to be honest. I know you're shocked, but the end result is that by the time they get to the 16th century, we have this set of occult practices that are super effective. They're really useful, especially to people with our mindsets that are living today in places that were influenced by Europe. Okay, all that to say, it's the chain of manifestation. All right, so gosh, let's see here. I'm trying to find my graphics for today. All right. That's the chain of manifestation one, I think. Yes. Okay, so, all right, so, let's see. All right, so within the how do I want to put this? Within the swirl, the I can't think of the word, but like the broad spectrum of occult practices, or spiritual practice and spiritual information, the role of planets and planetary magic is best understood when you look at the Corpus Hermeticum, at least within the system. All right, let's put this into the context of the system that I teach. So as a magician, the magic that I've learned and practiced and am particularly proficient at, in my opinion, is the magic that's based on these planets. And I based it on the Corpus Hermeticum. I got into planetary magic because of the Corpus Hermeticum. I was reading through it to figure out what Hermetics was all about. Actually, what happened was I was arguing with someone about a very obscure Kabbalistic point, and I was totally right from a 20th century perspective on ceremonial, magical, Q Kabbalah interpretations of traditional magic, and this person I was arguing with was actually he actually knew what he was talking about. So he knew. Hey, how's it going? So he knew what was going on. Anyway, he was wrong. He was wrong in my context about something, and he showed me that he was actually right if you took the Kabbalah of the Hebrews that it had come from before it had been appropriated by Christians and the occultists of their day, who wanted to remove all of Judaism from it and turn it into proof of Christ. anyway, basically he demonstrated to me what cultural appropriation was and how it had happened to Kabbalah and why it was inappropriate. Ceremonial magic is very much about trying to use closed practices that were never properly understood, introduced, or conveyed, in my opinion. So I was disgruntled about that because I thought I like to be right. I hate being wrong. And they had proved that I was wrong because I didn't know what I was talking about, which sucks. So in a fit of spite, I decided to go back before the Kabbalah ever existed and find out a different kind of magic. Because like I was saying, I believe all of our systems came from somewhere, and people just developed it on their own. And I figured if Kabbalah that I had learned was corrupted and I couldn't be considered an expert in it, then I would go back further because the Kabbalah that I was learning had been corrupted, obviously. So I couldn't learn the uncorrupted Kabbalah because I'm not born Jewish and I'm not within the culture that teaches it, and I have no interest in being in that culture. It's not worth it to me to learn magic that in my opinion is every bit as powerful as every other cultural tribe's magic, no matter how they want to pretend like they're the only chosen ones or not. It's not, regardless of whether or not they are the chosen ones, their magic is not more effective than everybody else's, and the things that they say about being the only god is also wrong. So in my experience, so I have a hard time believing most of what anyway, it's not for me, I guess is what I'm saying. So I went back to the Greek stuff and the core Hermetic texts, and I found the Corpus Hermeticum. I didn't even know we had a Hermetic Bible, if you will, but texts from the time of the Bible that were for Hermeticists. I read it and I realized that the actual Hermeticists were kind of like the Essenes, and they are kind of like Gnostics, they're somewhere, they've got their own beliefs, and it's very, very similar to Gnosticism, and there's all these heavens and everything. And it's like if you've read Plotinus and all those other the early Greek philosophers, they're very much of a similar type, and they come up with similar conclusions, I guess, but they sound the same, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But the Corpus Hermeticum, when you read it and you read the Divine Pymander, it's talking about the Logos, right? The Logos is the Word of God from Christianity, right? Well, actually, it's from Greek Gnosticism, right? The Logos is the Word, and they believe that the Word was uttered by the true God, the source of everything, and the Word is its representative. It's the speech of God that forms existence, right? And you're reading through it, and there's all this stuff in it that looks like in the Timaeus, they talk about the workman and the good and the nous mind and the emanations and everything. And the Corpus Hermeticum is very similar to that. In fact, I believe Timaeus is one of the characters in it. I don't remember. But and of course it was done on purpose, right? But the approach to what Hermeticism wasn't about magic. It wasn't about learning a set of spirit names and times to call them in a grimoire, and it's not about any of that. It's about returning to God through theurgical practices, which are meditational and contemplational. It's not about doing ritual at all. But the principles of Hermetics are that everything, that the human beings descended through the 7 spheres, receiving a portion of the power of each of the governors before coming to the material world where everything manifests. And this core myth from the Corpus Hermeticum and the Divine Pymander forms the foundation of, like, it explains, it's the hierarchy. Wait, where's my... Do I have a picture of this? It's the hierarchy of... let me see if I got a good picture. Sort of. No. I don't have any good pictures of it. So, the Corpus Hermeticum is the I don't know, it's the philosophical underpinning. It describes the process of manifestation, of how the universe was made and how it emanated from God, and how the seven spheres came into being, and how it provides a map for creating things. And Hermetic magicians have basically said, and it describes how the human being was created in God's image, received a portion of those powers, and is therefore fit to represent God on the earth. Magicians take that, Hermetic magicians, and we say, okay, we're made in the image of God. We received a portion of the seven powers, like it says in the Corpus Hermeticum. And then we say, and we know these technologies to call on these seven governors again and send their legions to direct their forces to our benefit, right? So, yeah. So the Corpus Hermeticum itself teaches that the seven governors, that are represented by these planets, are how ideas come into being, and basically it's a process where the mind of God thinks of something, and it uses the logos to express it, and the logos is the word of God that expresses that idea, and the seven governors of the seven spheres provide a portion of their power to create a harmony, just like each of the periodic table of elements have their own vibration. They put their vibration together, and instead of however many 200 or however many elements there are these days, I know they keep finding more, and I can't remember how many there used to be anyway. So, but however many elements there are, there's only seven in Hermetic magic, thank God. But the seven elements come together, and based on the proportion of the seven planetary powers, that's how you end up with what you are. So in the same way that a person who is very physical is going to focus on their body and work out all the time, and they're going to deal with life from a physical perspective primarily, they're going to be like a body person, and a mind person is going to be very intellectual and study things, academics, and look for processes, and try to use learning and education to make decisions that get them what they want rather than physical power, right? So it's like there's two extremes there. And in a similar way, the Hermetic magician is focusing those. Anyway, the Hermetic magician is focusing those powers. Shit, I had a great metaphor lined up. So I've been cutting down on my pot lately, and before the show I had a little bit of oil, and then I got high. God damn it, I got a little too high. Fuck, now I can't find my thoughts. But I am going to get to all of my main points, I promise. But anyway, the Hermetic magician is able to recall, like the Corpus Hermeticum says that the reason that people aren't living as if they were little images of little creator gods is because we forgot when we were born that we received that power, and we don't know how to use it, right? So one of the things that Pymander does is when you seek God through the logos, any kind of pursuit of God, if you live a pious life, any kind of looking for your source is going to result in remembering that you have all these powers. You're going to be reintroduced to yourself, and you're going to be able to tap into them over time with more stuff. So that's the general theory that's presented in the Corpus Hermeticum. The magicians believe that we can directly use that logos part of ourselves to conjure those seven governors to harmonize an intent with the energies it takes to manifest and materialize our desired outcome. And that's what we're trying to do. So how do I wrap all this up? So the perspective of the magician is what determines or helps to determine what, the culture, the tribe of the magician programs the magician to expect things to happen a certain way, right? Gives you the lore that you need to be able to tap into the symbols that are familiar with your culture. And I know, Qui-Gon, you're into Chinese medicine and Taoism, right? And that's like, obviously you weren't born Chinese. I don't know, it's obviously to anybody else, but to me, I know you're not Chinese. And Yet you become proficient at this entire skill set. You know the symbols, you know the powers, you know the energies that they represent, and you're incredibly good at what you do, right? Even though you weren't born to it, but you had to overcome all those hurdles and train yourself, and you're still struggling with that kind of thing, I'm sure. Like there's got to be like I mean, for me, I keep running into things. I'm projecting it onto you. I don't know if you're having the same experiences, but like there's always like something that I don't understand because I'm not a 500 BC Orphic initiate when I'm doing my Orphic studies. There's always something I don't know about that I don't get, that I have to rely on my intuition, my hopes, my ideas of how it should be, and the information I get from the spiritual world, and then I have to test it and see if I'm right or not, but that's basically, I fill in the gaps. I bridge the link that I'm missing to the cultures that I'm not a part of. With imagination, imagination and experimentation, that's what we do. For the most part, we look for things that say similar things and we try to plug that in. If you look at people who are like modern Goetia magicians, nobody's following one grimoire, nobody's following a system. People mingled it all together and they're like, they fill in the blanks. I saw someone the other day talking about, they were actually talking about something kind of interesting, but what they ended up doing at part of the conversation was it's about the Shem angels and what Christian Kabbalists think happens when you add IAH and IAL. And I do this with my own. I learned it and it seems to work, so whatever. But the argument got to be about I don't know. They were going to bring the Shem angels in to a astrological talismanic working to offset the missing powers. Is it necessary with Shem angels or is it something different? And they're asking this astrological magician all this stuff, and he's like, I don't know. It's not my forte. Anyway, but what's happening is they're synthesizing all these different systems and into a new thing, and they think that the rules of Agrippa's explanation of the Shem angels are real, that Agrippa was right, and he's right about how that works, and therefore you can take the Shem angels and what Agrippa says about them in his 3 books of occult philosophy and apply it to this part of magic over here that has nothing to do with it. And maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. Maybe it's going to create a cognitive dissonance. Maybe it's going to clash. I don't know. But like the little 8-year-old girl that talks to fireflies and has successful results, maybe he's going to have some successful results, But I don't think so. I don't think it works like that. I don't think it works like that. The rules of one system don't necessarily transfer to every other system, and even within Hermetics, you can have one plant have different planetary associations in different times, different aspects. One plant can have, and even different parts of the plants can be distributed to different planets, So it's like, where's the line that you can't, where's the rules? Where's the governing edge that you can latch onto? They're very slippery in occultism, But anyway, I try to filter it down. So anyway, that's what magic is. That's planetary magic is the 7 planets, right? The chain of manifestation. Okay, so back to the Corpus Hermeticum. The 7 planets, like as you descend through, the influence an idea. It's the qualities of those planets that become a water bottle, right? There's aspects of Saturn and Mars and Venus and Jupiter and the Sun and the Moon and Mercury. All those things went into creating this water bottle. But, it's, anyway, everything participated, right? A magician could therefore say, I'm going to conjure a water bottle by knowing the proper proportions of each of the planetary energies. I'll harmonize a thing and magically I'll get a water bottle. So what does that mean? Does that mean like if you do the magic and you actually do it and you're right and it works, does a bottle show up? I don't think so. And in my experience, what happens is somebody hands you a bottle, right? My wife did a bind rune earlier today. She's learning runes. So she does a rune and the neighbor just, I'm making burgers later. The neighbor yells up over the fence, "Hey, do you want this?" And he gives me something, and I took it, and it's out in the garage now. And it's exactly what she did the bind rune for. It's like literally from one aspect, and I don't want to get into it because it's pretty specific, but it's just funny how literal these spirits can be, and how short and quick it is to manifest. But it's not what she meant. It's an interpretation of one aspect of the bind rune could be seen as this, but it's not what we wanted was like general wealth and prosperity and health and all that stuff, but the way it particularly, one of the runes she used was specifically said to symbolize a particular thing, and we got a device that is directly related to that particular thing. So anyway, it's kind of cool how the coincidences are just very specific, but it'd be really great if I could narrow it down to figure out what specific part was just $5 million. Like what's the harmonic note that equals $5 million in my bank account? Like that's the vibe I want. That's the one I'm trying to find. I don't know which planets I have to mingle to get that shit, but once I do, there will be signs. Anyway, so the Corpus Hermeticum gave us this blueprint of how ideas manifest. Magicians took that blueprint and we applied our minds to it, and we figured out that basically what we do is we speak things into being, we call on these spirits that represent these 7 powers, and then tell them what we want with our words, just like the Logos is the utterance of God. We utter things out through our voice, and the spirits obey and listen, and they harmonize the intents with our words. So that's what planetary magic is about. Okay, it's about capturing the 7 forces that make up every fucking thing in some proportion and asking them what we want so that they can put all their proportions down in the right quantities. So if you're a planetary magician, of course that's not a planetary, so I've got a pile of oils here, but if you're a planetary magician, that's also not a planetary oil. All right. Okay, so this is all from Adam Conjure, by the way. Adam is my go-to supplier these days for all things occult. But I got a set of all 7 of his oils because as a planetary magician, I do a lot of specific planetary stuff. And if I want to do a Venus rite, for love and sex and prosperity and all the things that Lesser Benefic represents, for myself or for a client, I can use the oil to specially concentrate just the Venus stuff, and that's going to influence everything else, or I can mingle them in different proportions to try to create an oil that is in the right proportions of the thing that I want, if I think I'm smart enough to do all that stuff. I'm not smart enough to do all that stuff. Like, I don't know how much Saturn to ask Cassio to put into this spiritual container that will become I don't know how that works. So I rely on them to know how to do what they're doing and say, Cassio, I want a water bottle. Please provide the proper amount of Saturn necessary for that. And, Michael, you too, and everybody else, and they all provide each of their 7 stuffs. And I end up with a water bottle. But it's not... I'm not trying to micromanage it because I'm an idiot about that kind of thing. I'm not going to be able to figure it out. So the role of the magician is to, or at least we believe, is we go and we speak our words to these governors, and then they go out and do it. And why do they do it? So this is kind of important. Like, a lot of magicians don't know. Like, if you ask a magician why a spirit's going to do something for them, a lot of magicians don't have an answer out of the gate. Like, what? Because I said, because that's how magic works, but within the rituals, you actually have things that make you authoritative. Like, if you read it and you understand what you're saying, you're claiming power to command the spirits. In the Corpus Hermeticum, you don't need power to command the spirits. They recognize you. They recognize the human being was made in the image of God, and they loved him, that entity, as it descended to Earth, right? And they fell in love, and that's why they gave him that human a portion of their powers. So the reason we have the power to create things like a little miniature God on Earth is because we look like our dad, and they recognized us. That's your divine race and your authority as a magician, according to the Corpus Hermeticum. Going back to the temple magic, your authority to get what you want comes from the acceptance of the proper sacrifice, right? You pay the priest sacrifices the Red Bull at the right time, and you get what you want. Or, what bull to sacrifice at the right time to get what you want, The authority comes from the sacrifice in those situations, but you do something to have the right to call on the spirits and the right to tell them what to do. The crown of creation is sort of the hermetic approach. Like everybody loves us. Humans are the top of the food chain. We look like God the most, so we're the best, Jake Stratton Kent did not like that interpretation. He thought it was hubristic and prideful. I agree, but I didn't make the world. It's not my fault that it works like this, but it does work like this. And I think that there's a lot of different ways to interpret things, and at the end of the day, if it works, it works. And whether people like it or not is not for me to say. Success is my proof. Yeah. Forgot where I was going with all that again. So the authority of the magician comes from whatever, right? That's what I was talking about. The authority of the magician, you have to establish your authority to be justified in telling and asking for these miraculous things. So one of the things I talk about in my class is I really focus a lot on getting people to understand. Like, I focus on, like, in my magic these days, it's the Dervani manuscript that revealed that Zeus was all in all, right? So there's a god who consumed the source of everything and recreated the universe in its image. I love that symbolism for obvious reasons. I love being God. I love being a manifestation of the emanation of the divine being. And it makes all my magic work, because of course the spirits are going to work for me because they're also manifestations of the divine being, and we're all vibing together and we all want things to work, and we're all kind of doing our own thing until somebody says something and says, hey guys, let's all get together and do this. And that's what our magic is creating a place where we create a harmony that the universe then resonates with and materializes. It's a easy concept. But the 7 planetary governors provide a matrix to access the powers of creation. That's what planetary magic is. It's a 7 system, a 7 categoried system of accessing the spirits. All it is it's a spreadsheet. Planetary magic is an Excel spreadsheet. Now, it's a list of correspondences that tell you what the powers of the planets are and what you're supposed to do to access them, and how to use them to your benefit. So my classes, what they do, each of the 7 individual classes, is they take you on a deep dive into the lore of the spirits of the Hermetic planets and powers for Hermetic magicians to be able to do Hermetic magic. And we just go through everything that Agrippa has to say about each of the planets, the key parts of the symbolism that we can use for our magic. If you're familiar with the Conjuration class, you'll know how to use the seals and stuff. But it's these 7 spheres classes that provide you with all the lore that you need to be able to utilize these spirits. And it comes from Agrippa, so it has authoritative force, and you'll actually believe in all this stuff enough to expect it to work for you in ways that your entire occult society, going back to at least Agrippa, has believed it works. Okay, so it's not just you, it's the power of all the magicians before you who speak through you as well, right? So it's a way of tapping into ancestor magic at the same time. Yeah. So I think in the class I talk a lot more about the chain of manifestation. And the chain of manifestation really is the coolest part of Hermetic magic. It's how things happen, right? It's how things come into being. It's the process. And if you're a process guy like I am, then you know what I'm talking about. But like the process itself is a set of stages that's going to be different every time, but it has to be the same, right? It has to be the same 7 things every time, but it's going to be different every time. It's going to be different aspects of the gods. It's going to be different weather while you're trying to get to them. You know, like if Saturn's going backwards, what's it called? RX. Retrograde. Saturn's going retrograde here shortly, and when it does, nobody's going to be able to do anything with direct Saturn energies for 13 years, right? Oh no! Yeah. So what are you gonna do if the astrology isn't in alignment? You know, the spirits still are. You know, you can still talk to Cassiel of Saturn. You know, it's not like you're cut off from. It's not like Saturn goes away just because it's going backwards. It just changes some of the aspects of it. As magicians, I don't worry so much about that, to be honest. I think as a conjuring magician, the intelligences of the spirit outweigh the happenstance of our daily activity. In the same way that you put on or carry an umbrella outside when it's raining, you could call on Hermes to protect you when Mercury is retrograde. So, anyway, so that's basically how I think magic works. And the 7 planetary spheres, what makes the magic planetary is that it taps into the qualities of these 7 spheres that are necessary according to the Corpus Hermeticum to create everything that we experience here in this material world. And that's our cultural vibe for the classes that I'm working on. It's all very Greek. It's very, very Greek. It's also kind of Greek, right? And it's Hellenistic Greek, but it's also goes back to the Minoans, right? Not much further back than that, but like the Hesiod, roughly 500 BC, 800 to 500 BC ish through I want to say like 3rd century, 4th century is basically where most of the magic that I practice originates from. The belief systems that I work with. And when you go back in time, I feel like the closer to the source you get, the purer the water is, because there's not as many ideas polluting it. But at the same time, things change over time, right? It's not the same universe that Agrippa was living in. The planets are not where they were. The stars are not where they were 200 years ago. It's not the same world, right? And so, I mean, if your magic hasn't changed and adapted, I mean, I don't know who you're talking to. Those spirits aren't there anymore. You know what I mean? They've changed. They've gone forward through time. Can this be used in conjunction? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so my conjuring box is how I do my planetary magic, right? So I'd use the metal spheres, seals that I make. Like this is an everything talisman. It has all 7 planets. Okay, so this is a planetary magic. No, wrong way. Okay, so yeah. So this is a talisman made for planetary magic, and it's made for conjuring spirits, right? So in planetary magic, when you study Trithemian conjuration techniques, so one of the most easiest, simplest conjuration techniques to come out of the 17th century. It's very authentic according to all the Renaissance magicians and the grimoire magicians and the folks who are very into being sticklers for complicated contemporary stuff. They can't say anything to you about using the Trithemian ritual because it's from the right time period. It uses all the right words, and it's the only comprehensive, cohesive system of conjuring spirits that I have ever seen. I mean, it's even more complete than... Well, wait a minute. That's not true. The true grimoire is pretty fucking complete. And the Heptameron is still missing, I think, the conjuration part. But Trithemius has everything. And it's a system. I've adapted the fuck out of it. It's hardly Trithemian even today. But my conjure box comes directly out of it. It's a It's a table of practice engraved on top of a wooden box. Right? The box itself has two electrodes over here and a wiring inside. Right? The wiring there, this one hasn't been completed yet. The wiring there lights up the light when the metal talisman completes the current, right? So in the planetary hour and the planetary day, I go through my formula of conjuration and I put my crystal ball on my conjure box. And when I get to the part where I call on the spirit, I hold the Laman of the spirit, right? This is based on the Lamans. This is actually the Pinnacles of Solomon talismans, but holding a talisman in your hand while you call the spirits or wearing it on your chest, that's what Trithemius recommends for his ritual. What I do is I just use the symbol of the spirit, I put it on the electrodes, and I call on the spirits by name, and the electricity has to pass through the little metal thing. It's not anything that Trithemius did for sure. I don't think it makes it more magical or more powerful. I just like it. I think it's cool to have my crystal ball light up when I conjure the spirits, so I do that. Yeah, so that's how that works. I have one, but I've always been curious as to how the conjuring box works. I even studied radionics as it seems to be built on that, but I'm a bit lost. Armani, I would love to talk to you more about that. I'm trying to remember if I've ever done a public ritual on it. I don't know if I have or not. But in my classes, I've been doing stuff where you can watch it happen on a video. Oh my gosh, everything's a mess right now. I don't know if you should see this right now, but this is my occult area. Weed cleaning devices. Basically everything that's in my pockets when I sit down, I'm putting there if I'm not doing a ritual today. But this is my functioning altar space, right? It's got the table of practice here. It's got my wand and the incense stuff. And if you follow the Trithemian script, it's just this is a table of practice, and it tells you what to do for all the steps. So yeah, it's pretty cool, honestly. You do your orations, you get to the part where you conjure the spirit, you put the metal seal on there, and you say, by your name and your seal, I call upon you. They show up, you scry, you tell them what you want. When you're done, you thank them, and they're good to go. So, all right. Okay, so that's how the conjure box works. But that's also how all my planetary magic works, right? So all the metal talismans, the lamans, I make in the planetary hours or the planetary days, and I consecrate them to the spirits. I conjure the archangel that they represent, and I ask it to bless and consecrate the talisman, and come when whoever is using it calls on the spirit in their name, you know, using that symbol. It creates a connection to people to use. You know, by the way, everybody should buy my talismans. Actually, you should make your own out of paper because it works just fine out of paper. You just have to do it in the right timing and on the right day, and then you ask the spirit to bless it. If you like metal talismans, I sell them on my site under the shop button. Shameless plugs. Shameless plugs. Over here on shop. These are all my stuffs. Talismans are over here on the bottom. And there's a conjure kit. You can get that in all 7 seals, or just a set of all 7 seals. So these are the 7 planetary seals that I thought it would magnify. There it goes. Yeah. So these are the ones I do on my laser engraver. I don't charge a lot for them because they are not the very best quality on the planet. But you're not going to find a complete set of talismans of 7 lamans for $225. People are charging that much for just one. So I think that's ridiculous, in my opinion. Let me rephrase that. It's not ridiculous because they're doing some really cool art. But I think it's what's ridiculous about it is that you can do it with paper and pen. right? If you do it in the right hour, you don't need to pay me or anybody else to make your talismans for you. If you believe that the symbols are actually working because the spirits that are represented by them want you to have what that symbol represents, and that's why you call them, and they're working with you on that. They're going to harmonize it in your sphere. If you understand that that's what's going on, you're not going to have to worry about it. But if you want someone else to do it because you just feel more confident in that and you're just starting out or whatever, I get it. Or if you don't have a laser and you want to have a metal talisman that's been engraved in the right timing and everything, I'll do it for you. I'll charge you for it, but I'll do it for you. But it's not necessary. You know, my conjure box is cool because it lights things up, but it's not necessary. The first time I conjured spirits with the Trithemian table of practice, I used a cereal bowl to trace the big circle. I flipped it over and traced the inside of the cereal bowl to do the smaller circles, and a tuna can to make the smallest circle where I put the triangle of practice, right? It was like a pencil, and I didn't know what spirit I was going to conjure. I looked at the time, it was the moon hour, so I conjured Gabriel. And I didn't have a Laman. I barely got the Laman made within the hour, but I did it all with paper and pencil, and I had a little crystal. Well, it wasn't even a ball, it was just a crystal point. You know, and I put it on there, and I called on the spirit, and it showed up. Actually, no, it was a crystal ball. Actually, it was a crystal ball now that I think about it. I even remember the ball. I threw it in the Gulf of Mexico. So, yeah. Had bad memories. But the ball itself, like, I'm looking at the ball, and the Archangel of the Moon shows up, and it's just this very holographic looking face is looking up at me. And it wasn't physical. I didn't see it with my eyes. I just knew it was there, and I kind of got a mental image of it in the crystal. And it was all paper. It was paper and pencil, you know. Everything I've done since then with that system has been amazing. It's great. But it hasn't been more effective because I use a metal talisman. Okay, if you believe this shit, if you believe it, you gotta believe it. The seals, made in the right time, and the spoken word are how this works. The seals represent the spirit. They get the spirit's attention, the energy types that you're trying to harmonize into your intent, however you want to put it. The symbols are what work to get the spirit. The words are what tell it to do what you want when you consecrate the talisman. You know, your words and the symbols are the power. It comes because that's how it works. You know, it does what you want because that's how it works. It's what it's supposed to do. You know, is it going to work for you? Yes, I think. Are you going to notice it? Maybe. If it doesn't seem to work, you can always come to me, and I will tell you it was your own fault. But I could be wrong, you know? I don't know. The power of planetary magic. I think I've talked about all that I want to talk about. The what is magic, you know, what is planetary magic, and where does it come from? It comes from the Chaldeans, and how it works, right? The chain of manifestation, it's symbolic of how everything works. Specifically how it works, you conjure the archangels of these planets. Each planet represents a force in the universe. All these forces have a god associated with it, like Aphrodite, an archangel associated with it, like Anael, a choir of spirits associated with it, like Arlim, maybe? I don't remember exactly who the choir is for the... Anyway, and then maybe the you know, whatever. You've got all these different things, right? And in my conjure class, what I do is I call on the god, the archangel, and the four spirits of the Key of Solomon planetary talismans, because that represents the divine, the Zeus, the head, right? The head, the intermediaries, the archangel, and then the physical materializers in the all in all, right? So we've got head, middle, all in all is the core theological approach I have to my cosmology, and it's mirrored throughout my conjuration, right? So I've got head, middle, and all in the spirits I call it. So yeah. yeah, so that's everything, right? So I mean, that's the basics about all of planetary magic. So the next few classes or the next few weeks, I'm going to be going over each of the individual planets. I'm going to try it anyway. I'll start with Saturn next Sunday. Don't know that I particularly want to go through all 7 spheres in these Sunday afternoon classes. I really want you to take the classes. I want you to take all of these. I want you to go over the courses here and watch them. I did all that because it's a lot more detail than I get into here, right? You know, and it's a simple way to get all of the stuff that I think you need to become a magician. Still missing the elemental stuff, but yeah. So these planetary magical courses, like for Saturn, I get into all the details of Saturn and Jupiter, all of Jupiter, all the way down through the moon. It's a lot of information, but I don't know that I want to go over them every afternoon on Sunday. But I might just I do want to go over the stuff because of the initiatory aspects of it. In the background, what I'm working on are a couple of books and a system of initiations into the whole Zeus system while I'm trying not to have to come up with original material for these weekend classes. But yeah, I do want to cover the initiatory aspects of it, because as I write, I want to bounce ideas off of everybody. But, okay, so that's all I got for people today. If you hi Agatha, how you doing? Okay, I'm actually wrapping things up, Agatha. I'm sorry. But you could go back and listen to it if you want to. Yeah, and you have just don't listen to any of the hypnosis stuff. You'll be fine. Okay. All right. I will talk to everybody else later. Does anybody have any questions about anything, or about the classes, or I don't know. The working does not create the seeker creates the working. With strong intent and direction of will, you'll receive what you need for successful vocations. Yeah. Yeah. Kyle, Daryl was actually, when he said that earlier, he was, we were talking about politics. How much bullshit it is to have to create any goddamn thing on this planet because everybody's in the way. I wasn't quite as stoned as I am now, but I was on my way to getting there for sure. But yeah. Okay, I thought there's not a lot of questions. All right, guys, that's all I got then. I'm going to hop off. Take care, everybody.